Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, NMRA.
You're muted, Jim.
You're muted, Jim. There, I got you.
You're muted again.
Welcome. I'll try to get it right this time. Welcome. Thanks so much for coming this evening. We really do appreciate it. Hope you come back often. Hope you tell your friends about us. Before we start the show, I want to introduce Father Ron Walters with the show's prayer. Father Walters.
O God, as we create in miniature the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Father, thank you so very much. We really do appreciate everything that you contribute to our shows. You make them really special. Thank you. Well, now, before we start the show, I do want to run a video of Brennan's Model Railroading, who is our sponsor.
For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering unique products for the O-scale market. Our flagship product, Brennan's Better Ballast, was an instant hit and continues to be the industry leader. Its prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite make it the choice for discerning modelers. Since then, we've developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Additionally, we offer craftsman kits that anyone can build with complete photographically illustrated instructions that assume you've never done this before. The Sonky Wanky Coffee Company is the latest and the fourth kit to be added to our ongoing and highly popular limited edition Ellison Tribute series. These kits take Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level with Dennis spin. The idea being that if Frank were alive today, this is how we would build these models using modern methods and materials. Use the QR code to visit our website.
I'm very proud that Dennis Brennan wanted to be the sponsor for our shows. And I really do appreciate his financial support. Thank you so much, Dennis. I do want to talk about the Scholarship Challenge. We are gaining, we gained additional contributions from people as a match for that challenge. And I'm grateful for that. But we still have a ways to go. And if you can see your way clear to donate a few dollars here or there to help us meet the $1,000 challenge, we sure would appreciate it. We're not quite a third of the way through to meet that match, but we're working hard to try to do it, and hope that whether you've donated to us before or not, that before the first of the year, you'll consider a donation because it's 100% tax deductible. And keep in mind, whatever you contribute, 5, 10, 20, whatever it is, in effect is doubled because the challenger matches whatever your contribution is up to the $1,000 level. I also want to apologize to anybody that tried to recently use our Zeffy account on our website because it was misfunctioning. And we've gotten it straightened out as soon as we figured out that it was misfunctioning. So if you tried to use the Zeffy for a contribution in the recent past, say the last week or so, I hope that you'll redo it and try us one more time, because our Zephy account is working now and functioning. I also want to say thank you to the 3 donors who are in the brass category for our corporate donors. Again, this is Brennan's Model Railroading, with Dennis Brennan as the owner. It is the New Creations Victorian Railroad Building LLC that's owned by Ellen Rogers, and the Great Scale Model Train Show that is in Timonium that's owned by Scott Gear. And each one of those companies has contributed $250 and therefore are brass sponsors for our scholarship. And I want to thank them so very much for all of their trust and frankly for their participation in helping the young model railroaders in their future career goals. Well, with that said, I've got a couple of announcements that I'm happy about, and I want to take just a minute or two to try to explain what we're doing. Come December the 1st, we're going to start a publication called New Tracks Modeling Observations. Our editor is Martin Brechbiel, MMR. Because he doesn't have enough to do, he volunteered to be the editor of this publication. He has some experience being an editor. I think he's done editing for just about everything that's ever been printed. So I really appreciate his stepping up and wanting to be the editor for this new publication. First one will be issued December the 1st. It'll be an email. It'll go to everybody who is a subscriber to our website. We have over 900 subscribers on our website. It'll also go to everyone that has donated either to New Tracks on Patreon or through Zephy or directly by check to our scholarship. So they will get a copy of all of the emails. And we're also going to have a short video that we're going to put on our YouTube channel that will provide the link where you can go to our website and download the publication so that everybody that is one of the 1,640 some odd subscribers to our YouTube channel, or the 900 subscribers to our website, or the number that we have of donors for the various programs, everybody will be able to get this for free. It'll come out once a month. And as I say, Martin is the editor of it. And we have an email for Martin. So if you have an idea or something that you'd like to see in this publication, and what we're trying to do is each one of the publications is going to be different. What we're trying to do is have it be observation. It's going to be ideas. It's going to have commentary. It's going to be insights from the participants and the viewers that are the members of New Tracks Modeling. In other words, it's you. It's what you're thinking. It's what you're feeling. It's what you want to say to other people. What you think is important for us to understand and to know about. That's happening in our hobby. That's happening in modeling in our hobby. So if you want to participate and put something in the magazines, or the, not magazines, the newsletters, then his email is Martin, M-A-R-T-I-N, period, Brechbiel, B-R-E-C-H-B-I-E-L at newtracksmodeling.com. And you can send him an email and tell him what you want to do, and he'll tell you what you need to do to get it in the email for whatever month you're interested in putting something in. It can be new products. It can be new ideas. It can be something that you found out that you're not sure that other people know about. It can be anything that you feel is important or that deserves conversation, deserves other people that are modelers knowing about. That's what this is all about. And it'll also contain what's coming up in our future shows and the ideas that we have for the future, such as this newsletter. If we had this newsletter in the past, then this would be something that we would announce in that newsletter, that we were doing something like this. So it's going to be, I'm putting it in each one of my articles. It'll be in the S-Scale and the O-Scale resource magazines. What we're trying to accomplish with this newsletter will be included in the first newsletter that comes out December the 1st. And we would appreciate your comments and your reactions to it. If you like it, fantastic. If you think it's a waste of time and we shouldn't be doing it, or you don't want to see it or whatever, or you want to take your email off our list because it's worthless to you, then we want to know about that. We've tried a lot of things over the last 4.5 years on new tracks. And this is something new that we're trying. If you like it, we'll continue it. If you think it's a waste of time and we're wasting our time doing it, that's fine. We'll try something else. Keep in mind, this is your show. We want it to be your show. We want your input about it. We think that this is a valuable addition to the shows because we think that we can keep you informed with some ideas and concepts of what we're trying to accomplish in the future that we're not able all the time to incorporate into the shows because, frankly, the shows are running 2.5 hours now, and that's a long time once a week to do a Zoom show. So we don't want to extend the shows, and this is one way for us to try to reach you and tell you about things that we think are important to our hobby and to modeling without it necessarily having to be live on a particular Zoom show that night. Maybe live later on in the future on a Zoom show, but it's something that we think is important for you to know about. So if you have comments about it, you can email Martin, you can email me, either one of us. Mine is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com and Martin.Brechbiel @newtracksmodeling.com. Either one of us, whatever you got to say, we'd appreciate hearing from you. Most importantly, I'd appreciate it if you sent it to Martin. But anyway, I really thank him so very much for agreeing to be the editor of this. And I think I have great hopes for this. I think it's going to be a great addition to New Tracks and something that's going to be beneficial to everybody. Other comment that I want to make, an announcement I want to make, I have found an individual by the name of Michael Johnson. And Michael really impressed me. He is heavily involved in simulation of model railroading. They're involved with the NMRA and trying to include what they're doing in the NMRA material. When I talked to him, I was really impressed with what he was talking about. So on May the 8th, we're going to devote a whole show to simulation and what that could mean down the road for our hobby. I had no idea that there are manufacturing companies for simulation, not the computer program part of it, but actually models that are used in the simulation. I had no idea that there are 20, 25-year-olds in the simulation model railroading community that use Bender program all the time to create the models, locomotives, freight cars, passenger cars, a wide range of different kinds of things, details for the simulation market. All of it, I understand, or at least the vast majority of it, is freeware. So it's all free. So once they have developed the 3D programming, I forget what they call it now, 3D images or something like that, then they post it on a site and it's free. You can pick it up. And all you got to do is get it printed out. If you want a model of it, then you can print it out and actually have a model of it. And all of the 3D work that you need done would be free to you. He tells me that just about every locomotive, every freight car, every passenger car of any railroad can be found. I don't really know where to look for it. I don't really understand simulation. I'm not familiar with it in any way, shape, or form. But after talking to him for about an hour, I'm convinced it may be part of the future of our hobby. And that's why I'm interested in trying to present it one night and try to expose everybody to it to see what your reaction is and whether you think it's something that we ought to continue talking about and getting involved with on our shows. So those are my two announcements. And like I say, that will come up on May the 8th, and it'll be the full show. We're going to try to have the manufacturers come on the show and talk about how they do their work and what it is, and show us examples and so forth. And actually the different people that approach simulation, I understand, from different frames of reference. I don't know what that means, but I'm interested enough to try to find out, and hope that you're interested enough to join us that evening and try to learn about what may be for some of us the real future of our hobby, particularly for the younger people coming into our hobby. Now, with that said, I'd like to turn and open the show tonight. And our first person that's going to be with us is Mr. Martin Brechbiel, NMR, for his Scratchbuilding Corner. Martin, welcome.
Oh, okay. I'm in leadoff position and I wasn't aware of it. Let's see where we're at. Share screen. Well, that's not it. What the heck happened? What the hell? I can't get out of it. What the heck happened to my PowerPoint? It disappeared. Well, let's try it again.
Great model, Martin. Great model.
Yeah, built that one all myself. There we go. That looks like PowerPoint. There we go. Somehow PowerPoint disappeared temporarily. It's like this computer's just like my subconscious. It's got a mind of its own. Okay, so here we go. Well, I don't even know where we were. Well, okay, yes, here's where we were. I wrote myself notes. So last, I had a roof sheathing on, made a smoke jack from some brass spits, and now we've got the whole roof on. There we go. And this is actually paper. This is old, clever models roofing. And I say old because this is the stuff they used to sell, and it's peel and stick. Now you have to go to their website and download a PDF and print your own. This was my last sheet of this tar paper. I figured this was as good as any place to use it, so it got used. And you just peel it and stick it down as straight as you can within reason. Fold over the edges to cover up the wood, and basically the simple tar paper roof. It's a little glossy. I have to come back someday and hit this with some flat spray or something. It doesn't look too glossy here, but I'll tell you in person, it's painfully glossy. Very unlike real tar paper. The front doors or main doors. So I've got a coat of paint on things now. This is dark gall gray. I used it because I have a carton of 6 bottles from Polyscale. So I figured it's time to open one up and play with it. The red is oxide red, as I recall. You have a pair of door handles. These are peculiar grab irons, actually, from Precision Scale. They come flat. You know, grab irons usually kind of U-shaped, 2 prongs that fit into the car. These come flat, and you have to unflatten them with a pair of pliers. So you have to be a little careful how you straighten them out, and you have to be fairly consistent with it. And you have to give the brass wire or the grab iron itself room to bend. Otherwise, they snap right off. Don't ask me how I know these things. They snap right off. And colorful language usually ensues. Okay, we have the windows in the back. Put some window shades in. I love having laser cut glazing and shades. They all fit nicely. They go right in. Actually, they didn't go quite right in because after I painted this, I slopped a little bit of Polyscale over the window openings, and you had to take the scalpel in there and clean that back out a little bit. But they pop right back in. Just a touch of goo is what I use to hold these in place. You could use something sticky that you like. I very rarely use CA for this. And here we have the sign. Okay, we have a sign. Signage. J.R. McCandles and Sons. It's pipe and plumbing supplies. That's just PowerPoint. I don't remember what the font is. It just when I said, oh, that looks good. And just print it down to the size it fits the space. It's glued onto a piece of 32nd thick basswood, and the edges are painted black and a little bit of adhesive behind it. Stick it on a wall and sign is hung. A little bit of black paint on the doorknob so you can actually see it. Otherwise, it just kind of blends in with all the rest of the red paint. So there's a lot of room on this thing. So, you can see it's empty. So we got to put some stuff on it. But, the infamous stuff, it's in parentheses, air quotes, whatever you like. But I want to back up 2 weeks and look at some stuff, because on that little freight station I did, I left it empty. It was kind of naked, lonely, abandoned, what have you. So you can go raid the parts bins and, some miscellaneous stuff. We got a couple of crates, a barrel, some tools, and you got to have a milk can because somebody has to have a glass of milk in the morning. Okay, so that's just an example of stuff. Let's go to the current build. More stuff, barrels, crates and barrels. I think there's a business opportunity there somewhere. Add a broom, a little coal box, a shovel, a little small shovel, probably actually an S scale or HO shovel, and a bucket. You just glue this stuff down on this end. It's not quite enough. I think it needs more clutter, but okay. So you can see from this side, I didn't put anything on this side, but it's still kind of lacking character. So we're gonna build add a little extra scene to this. And on the back roof, got a piece of brass wire, make a brass ladder, and we have an artista figure. It comes with a hammer, hammering away, putting a patch on the roof. And since I didn't put the flashing tarp flashing up the joint up here, up in here somewhere, here's a roll of tar flashing and a bucket of tar. So he has to get to work on finishing the roof for me, since I didn't finish it. I've got some other stuff around back here, a trash can, a barrel, some wasted oil containers of some sort. Always hide those around back so nobody notices. And a salvaged chair for employees to go back here and have a smoke or a chew, depending on your persuasion. And different angle, same stuff. Okay, so yeah, so back here, this whole side's still empty and it needs something. And so I want to add a pipe rack. They're selling pipe. They should have some pipe on the premises, I would hope. Okay, this is derived from, I think, a pipe rack that Lex Parker did a while ago or a long time ago or what have you. And I think you can buy it as a kit in styrene. And I thought, well, that's not enough pain. Where's the box of brass parts? And here's some brass angle and some brass box stock. And the way I have it laid out here, well, this is the base. That's the left side. That's the right side. So we just have to solder that up, make an A-frame, put some crossbars on it, connect all three of those together. We have a pipe rack. I'm not going to go through all that in great detail because it was not entirely trivial, but it wasn't difficult either. But there's what it looks like when you get it all together. And so you build these three pieces, three sections with these, let's see, I got 4 crossbars on it. And then there's an X holding it all between each one, holding it together. So this is a lot of cut and measure and fit and make sure it works. It's also a lot of clamping, a lot of hemostats, and holding it together and soldering it back together the second time after you drop it twice on the floor. Don't drop it on the floor. You don't have to do everything I do. And you get it to a point where, okay, clean it up with lacquer thinner, clean all the flux off it, run outside on the warmest day of the week, and throw some black paint on it. So there's what an end view looks like. So there's a little notch at the bottom here on each of these to let this cross piece connect up. Yeah, and these are actually channel cross pieces, and inside the channel is some 25 thousandths wire that extends out a little bit on each side. And that's what it looks like when you get done. If you are so inclined to build it in brass. But styrene obviously seems to be a lot more fun, a lot easier, a lot more approachable. But honestly, I just didn't have the styrene, and I had the brass, and I have a torch, and I have solder and flux. So why not? It only took a couple of days here, on and off in between everything else. And making some pipe, well, that's just brass and aluminum tubing. Just cut it to length, throw it on there after you paint it black. And now we have a pipe rack with pipe. And that's interesting. Well, I never put the next slide in. We'll have to have that. We'll have to have that next week. So there, use your imaginations. It fits that hole right there, but I'll come back to it next week. I'm betting that picture is still sitting on the camera somewhere. Yeah, I hope it is. Anyhow, there you go. And any questions? Now's the time to squawk.
Anybody got any questions for Martin? Martin, thank you so very much. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Stunned everybody into senselessness.
Oh, good. I do want to tell you that Mike Davis, who has joined us in the past, could not be here tonight. He was scheduled to be here and talk about youth modeling, but he couldn't be here. He had something come up in his family, and he apologizes, but he'll be here for the next show. I also skipped talking to Chris Corse before I started the show about the upcoming My Build. So Chris, we've got 3 of them coming up. One of them November the 22nd, December the 20th, and then in the first one for 2024 is January the 17th.
All right, thanks, Jim. Pull up the slides here. All right, the next My Build is November 22nd, as Jim just said. It is a free for all, so send us whatever you're working on, whatever you found, whatever you're looking for help with, etc. We've always got plenty of time to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about with your builds. So, and moving on, if I can get the slide to advance here. And of course it doesn't want to. Hang on. There we go. Okay. All right. The holiday themed My Build is December 20th. So anything that fits in the holiday scheme, Santa, Christmas, billboard cars, snow scenery, snow plows, people ice skating, holiday lighting, holiday decorations, those sorts of things all would fit in with the holiday theme. So you can send me those photos also at any time. And the email address is railrunner130@hotmail.com. And you send us those slides. Just let us know what, hopefully it's obvious what month you want them in, but either November or December, we'll take whatever you've got. So go ahead and please send us those photos, and we will make sure that you get airtime and talk about your build. Doesn't necessarily even have to be your build. It could be something you found or something you thought was cool or something along those lines, and we'll make sure that it gets on there. Also, one more thing is if this is your first time participating, please send us a photo for your intro card. And starting in January, have you talked about that yet, Jim?
No, I have not.
Okay. Do you want to talk about that now, or?
No, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. So starting in January, we're actually going to expand the My Builds we're going to take on a little bit more. Hopefully, eventually, we'll get to a point where we will take over the entire show for the My Build. So that's a big part of that relies on you guys to send us your stuff. So especially if you've never shown anything before, or maybe you're an armchair modeler, please get started on something. It doesn't matter. We're judgment free. So send us what you've got, and maybe you're stuck on something. Show us photos, and we'll help you out as best we can to get you headed in the right direction. So I'll turn it back over to you, Jim.
Thanks so much, Chris. I appreciate it, and look forward to the first of the year, because we're getting an awful lot of interest, it seems to me, in the My Build, both from the participants on the show, but also from the people that are viewing the My Build segments. And that's why, in my opinion, Chris and I talked about it, and we've been trying now for 4 years to build up the My Build part of this program. And we think maybe now is the right time. But it all depends on you. If you want to participate and show what you're working on, this will be great success for us. If not, then we'll have to cut it back and do something else. But we hope that we've judged it correctly, and we think this is a great time going into to 2024 to try to get more people involved, trying to show what you're really working on and how it's going and what you think about our hobby and so forth by the models that you build. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. So Chris, thanks again for everything that you've done. Well, now I want to turn to Dennis Brennan, who is going to continue his build along of his coffee factory. Dennis, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Jim. And hi, guys. Well, why don't we get right to it, and I'll recap what we did last week. So let's see here. This should be okay. Where is it? All right. Sorry about that. We're not seeing it, are we?
I'm seeing.
We're seeing the PDF.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So just to recap, this is the Sankey Wanky Coffee Company. It was a kit that was originally a model by Frank Ellison, probably one of the considered one of the fathers of model railroading, along with John Allen and a bunch of other people. And the beauty that I've discovered about reproducing his kit, his models as kits, is that they're perfectly proportioned. And so this is the building. And last week we started and we talked about building the foundation. And the foundation is basswood. And it was glued together. I use super glue. I use liquid super glue, or I use gel super glue rather than wood glue. Why? Because I want it to be fast. I don't want to wait for wood glue to dry. So I like a super glue. Some people don't like them, but used judiciously, they work perfectly. And if you realize that there are different types of super glue, there's a liquid and there's a couple different kind of gels. There's like a medium and a thick, and they each have their purpose and a place to use them, which I talk about when the time is right. So we got through the foundation, making sure that everything is oriented correctly. And once you did that, then spray painted it with white primer. And then because it's a jointed, like a zipper joint, I use spackling to fill in any gaps, sand it a little bit, and then respray it with white, and then ultimately cover it with Rust-Oleum Desert Bisque. It's a multicolored textured spray paint, and that spray paint really simulates concrete quite nicely. And it's a very fine texture. And like I said last week, it's not the texture that I really like. It's the fact that it uses all these little different colors that make the concrete pop, and it looks like concrete. That makes it pop and look like concrete. All right, so with that said, we're going to start on the actual building sides. There's a lot of prep work that one has to do before you put a building together. And I don't care what kind of kit you're using, what kind of kit it is. There's always prep work to do. And one of the first things you should do, which I haven't already said probably, is read the instructions. Read them all the way through. And then read them again. And if there isn't anything, if there's something that you don't understand, don't worry about it. Just read it again. Eventually it will just, it will gel. I try to make my instructions so that they're perfectly clear. I build these models. I usually build 3 of them before I'm happy, because I make some changes. But in that process, I discover the do's and the don'ts. And that's what I put in my instructions. So please follow the instructions. Even if you're a typical guy and you don't need any instructions, that doesn't work. There's a sequence that should be followed in any kit build. And if you're not a veteran modeler, you may put the cart before, you may not put the cart before the horse, you might screw it up. So at any rate, this building features a long chimney on each side. And that chimney has to be built. And we put that together before we do anything else, really. Before you can put the building together, you want to put the chimney together. And the chimney on each side consists of 3 parts. There's a middle piece and there's 2 side pieces, and you can see that they go right here into these little holes. And you want to put this together before you do any painting, for a couple of reasons. One, you're going to get a much better fit. If you paint this ahead of time and then try to stick it in these holes, the tolerance is pretty tight. And so it would be really hard to get in there. So you don't want to do that. The other thing is, you probably don't want to glue. It's better to glue wood to wood rather than paint to glue. So at any rate, there's a top and a bottom for the shorter piece. The other side has a longer piece. This side has a shorter chimney. The shorter chimney has a top and a bottom on the middle piece. The bottom is perfectly straight across. The top has, an indent here. And it's important to get that straight. If you reverse it, you're going to run into problems. Because what you want to end up with is a nice, straight, flat piece up here with just these four protrusions, these 4 little blocks sticking out, because that's what the chimney cap will go on when we get to that later. If you put this together wrong, you won't have that. So just make sure you get that right. And then the other thing to think about is a lot of kits, especially brick building kits, the walls are not thick. A real brick building has thick walls, at least the old brick buildings that we're modeling. Brick walls were made up of several layers of brick. Today, it's a brick facade against plywood, against 2x4 framing. but in in years past, they were actually solid brick buildings, 3-4 courses of brick thick sometimes. And in this case, because the chimney is wide, has a width to it, we also have to make the wall match. And so what we do is we put little spacers in between so that the wall and the chimney fit together. So there's actually a space underneath here. These spacers keep this wall pushed up against the chimney sides. Okay, and that also goes for these pieces here, these longer pieces. They go along the length of the building on the inside facing the roof. And again, there's a thickness on them, so we add spacers in between to get the right thickness so the walls look uniformly thick. Okay, now these are the walls for the building. It's actually not a difficult kit to put together. You just need to think about exactly the steps involved. So we paint, before you put any walls together, you need to paint them. And before you put the windows in, you need to paint the walls. The windows, we'll work on those next, but everything needs to be done on the walls prior to putting in the windows. And that's because once the windows are in, if you want to do any more, if you want to do some matte spray to cover up your weathering, now you're going to spray the windows. You don't want to do that. So what I did is I first painted the walls again with Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra Cover flat white primer. That's what I use. I'm sure any white primer would do. But the key here, when you're doing a laser cut wooden kit, is there's going to be a burn where these pieces of wood are cut. It's burned on the side, which looks almost black. It's not black, but it's pretty dark. And if you don't spray all of this, if you don't prime it, that's going to show up, that burn mark. It'll show up through the paint. So what you want to do is you want to prime this, and you want to prime those edges as well. And several light coats of priming rather than one heavy coat. And the best way to spray paint, make sure you shake the can for 3 minutes before you start. Really critical. That's what it says on the cans. Don't not shake it, or don't shake it for a shorter amount of time, because you're going to end up with a clogged can. And all cans don't spray alike. So I first suggest that you do a little spritz on a scrap piece of paper or cardboard or something, so you get a feel for the spray pattern. And keep the can about 12 inches away, and start off your piece, and then start the spray off this piece, and then keep your hand parallel to the piece, and spray across it in one pass, and stop the spray. Then do it again, but don't just go back and forth, because you're going to wreck it. So several light coats like that, better than one heavy coat. And for the color that I used on this one was Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra Cover flat red primer. And the name is actually a misnomer. It's actually a reddish brown color. And that's a sort of brown that tends to red, which is the color that I was after. You're free to use any color you like, but I try to give my brick buildings a slightly different look from one another, and so I vary the colors. from building to building. And then the lintels and the sills, the lintels are, we call them brick soldiers. They're the ones that go over the top of the windows, and the sills obviously go underneath. Those are separately applied peel and stick pieces, and those I paint prior to putting them on here. But before I put those on, we'll just jump ahead here because the windows are going to be a separate thing that we'll talk about later. These are the soldiers right here, and the sills go here. All right, and they're separately applied. Now, what I did with these, I just sprayed. These come on a laser board. It's a dark colored, very thin material, and it's basically brown. And I just sprayed the primer right over that, or sprayed the color right over that rather than prime them. And it just gives it a little accent. You can see the difference. Now, the other thing that I did here too is I added some mortar, okay? And now to do the mortar, what I did was I took a damp rag and I wiped over the red painted surface. I wiped over it. I didn't soak it. I just wiped it over so it was damp. And then I took regular spackle and a wet finger, and I dipped it in the spackle and I spread it along the wall. And I did it as many times as I needed to get the spackle into the grooves. That's what we're after, getting the spackle into those grooves. And then I wiped it off. I wiped the surface off with a damp rag. And you're still going to have a little bit of a haze on there. That's okay. Don't worry about it. A little bit of haze doesn't hurt anything. You can see over here, there's a little. But what I do is after wiping it off, you let that dry. And before you do anything else, spray it with, I use Krylon matte spray. Very light spray. Just spray it, and that will fix the mortar into the grooves. And then I used a couple colored chalks to weather it. I used a black and a brown. These are pastels, alpha color. I sell them at Brennan's Model Railroading. You can get them at probably any art supply store. I like these chalks because if you don't like what you do, you can just wipe it off. And that's the other reason you want to spray your mortar. Because if you don't spray the water and then you put the chalk on there and you try to wipe off the chalk or you try to blend it, you're gonna mess up the mortar. You don't want to do that. So spray the matte spray over the mortar, let it dry. Once it dries, then you can go over it with the chalk. And you'll notice I use the chalk along the top edge of the building and also underneath the windows. This is a very common, if you go and look at brick buildings, especially older brick buildings, you will see weathering very similar. Now, not always, not every building is going to look like that, but a lot of times you'll see it. So I just took, I took a Q-tip. Now what you can see is this Q-tip here. This tip I got at a drugstore. It's in the makeup department. Your wife will know all about that. It's pointy on one end and it's got a flat surface on the other. These are perfect for doing weathering with chalk. You just, like the tip, I could take that tip and wipe it along, and then just, you can put it exactly where you want, in a little streak if you want. The flat end, if you wipe that along the chalk and get it on there, it's great for smearing right along and giving yourself like a a line. So I think I used a flat part along here, and then I used the tip to do a little bit more of these. And you can go as far as you want with weathering. I tend to vary it on buildings, and I tend not to over weather. I don't think weathering should be the first thing that somebody notices. If they go, "Ooh, wow, what great weather!" That it should all be done with subtlety. Now, there are some buildings that you can really go nuts on, and other buildings just do a little bit on. Why? Because then they don't all look alike. Then each building will have a little bit more character or different character. So just keep that in mind. Again, there's really no right or wrong way to do any of this stuff. I will vary my technique as I go along, but this is what works for me. You can also go over it with India ink alcohol mixture, spritzing it on, or just taking a brush and doing a brush load across the top and let it run down. I didn't do that on this. If I wanted to make it look more weathered, I probably would, because it's going to give you a different look. So I think that's about, and then once you do that, so you can see where I streaked it here and here. Once you do that, then you can add these sills. And then, so I think that's probably about as far as I want to go today. Do I have any time left, Jim?
You really don't, Dennis. You've done a great job.
All right.
Now, are there any questions about what Dennis has covered? You're doing a great job, Dennis.
All right. Well, thank you, guys.
Hey, Dennis, just one question.
Yes.
Some modelers, especially on O scale, kind of advocate painting some of the bricks with kind of varying shades individually to get more variance. I noticed you didn't, I don't think you did that. Do you think that's not necessary? Or is it more the kind of building you're modeling, or?
Actually, I have done it on other buildings. I don't do it on all buildings because it's a different look.
Okay.
One of the things that I've done, I've got another building I'm working on right now. And what I did is I did all this basic stuff that I just talked about. And then I took some, your regular craft paints, and I used a foam brush, one of those little foam brushes. And I just took the craft paint, spread it around on a glass plate with the foam brush, and then wiped a bunch of it off, and then just dabbed various places on the brick. And I did that with like 3 different colors, and I dabbed here and there and here and there until I got it a modeled look. And then I went over everything. I sprayed it and went over everything with India ink alcohol mixture. So it's a valid approach. It just depends on what you want and how you want your building to look. Does that answer it?
Yes, thanks.
Thanks so much, Dennis. See you next week.
Hey, all right. Thank you, Jim, and thank you guys for tuning in. If anybody has any questions, just call me or email me.
And can you put your telephone and email in the chat function, please? All right. Now, next, I want to introduce Kurt Butcher. But again, I know that I seem a little frustrated and out of gear this show. I apologize. It's been an awful busy day because I guess we're trying to do a lot of different things in a short period of time. One of the things that I want to ask is we're looking for a volunteer to help us with the new newsletter that I talked about. Phil Edholm has been taking and converting some of the information that we needed into short videos for us. But he's got his hands full with doing that and doing some other things on our shows. So what I'm looking for is somebody that can take what Martin finally comes up with and converts it into a video. for us that we can post on our YouTube channel. Now, Phil uses a program where he inputs the data, selects the voice or the kind of output he wants, and the computer program he uses takes what he has inputted in type form. I'm assuming that this can be a copy paste, Phil. I don't know, but I'm assuming that. And then the computer program takes it, and out comes the video with the voice that Phil has selected. So what we're looking for is somebody that once a month can do this for the final document that Martin comes up with after he's finished his editing and it's ready to be published, and take that and input it into this kind of a computer program and get us a video then that we can post on the YouTube. So if you're interested in doing that, if you think that you can help us do that, if you want to learn how to use the program, and even if you don't know right now, the program didn't seem that hard from what Phil told me. It didn't seem difficult for him to learn. So I'm assuming anybody can learn it. And again, all it takes is inputting the information by text, and out comes the video voice. If we want to add photos to it, then that's a separate process. But the basic video itself is input the text, and out comes the video. The program was inexpensive. I think, Phil, you said it was what, $25, if I remember right. So New Tracks will be glad to purchase the program for the person that wants to do this, so it doesn't cost you anything. But we do need some help, because we just can't ask Phil to do this too, in addition to everything else he does. And I would like to produce this as a video as well as an email that we send out. So if you can help us, my email is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. And I really hope that we get a volunteer to help us do this. Thank you. Now I want to introduce you to Kurt Butcher. Kurt, a while back, showed some of his modeling on one of Chris's My Build segments. And he showed interior window treatment and how he did that window treatment and lit it and so forth. And I was really impressed with it, and called him up and said, Kurt, how about doing a segment on our show so that hopefully we can all learn how to do this. So he's going to do a couple of segments, and I really appreciate this, Kurt, because I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, great. It's great to be here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
Okay. I don't know how this is going to go because I don't have any videos to show you. I'm going to have to kind of do this live. This is just a basic backdrop building. I put together a lot of backdrop buildings because I usually build just for the layout, because I don't have a lot of space, and usually when you're building a layout, you never have enough space to build a layout. But anyhow, I started building these buildings. This one here was scratch built, and I used plexiglass. If you're looking at this, you see the back side of it is painted, of the windows is painted black. And I like using this material because it's stable. You can glue with CA, and this particular building was made out of nothing but plexiglass and the block. What do you call that? You buy it at the hobby store. It's pretty thin stuff. You can see it right here, but it won't move because there's enough plexiglass here to give it the support I need. But what I did with this particular building was just paint the back of the windows black, and you can see it does light through, but as soon as you lay it up against something, it will darken. Nope, I'm back there pretty good. Yeah, there it goes. It'll darken up. So I got to use it quite a bit, and I wanted to come up with a little more an idea for an interior. And I took some of the plexiglass and I painted the front of the windows. Let me show you. I'll pull another building up so you can see. Most of you guys have seen this building already, and I've got it lit up so you can see it. What I did originally was I painted on the curtains, and I did that because it was it was easy to do, and I was trying to shape some curtains so that I could still see the interior of the building. And I wanted to add something to the interior to give it a little depth. And you could see I've got some furniture in there, and I've got some people, and series of things. Now, and what I did to do that was, this particular building, by the way, is made with 2 sheets of plexiglass. I wanted to give it the depth, and I also wanted to protect the paint on the curtain as well. So I went online and I found these black on white silhouettes. And the nicest thing about them is you can cut them out, and well, first of all, they're small enough for just about any scale you use. You can see the size; they're really pretty small, and they've got assortment of things you can use. You've got tables, chairs. There's some chairs you can use, and they've got antique mirrors as well as people here. And like I say, you can size them down any size you want. So putting the plexiglass together. Now the plexiglass comes in various thicknesses. You've got the thick stuff here, and you've got some pretty thin stuff here. Now this stuff is nice because it's got the coated paper on it, and what I recommend, if you cut it out, just leave that paper on there and then peel it off afterwards, because the stuff will scratch up if you run it across the saw too often. But it's the thin stuff is flexible, and the thick stuff is extremely stable, and it doesn't bend much at all. But for putting together the building with the backdrops on them, I use about 1/4 inch thickness plexiglass, and the reason being is if you go too thick with it, you can actually see into the other window. And I put the backdrops on individually so you can see how small they are. And once you put the curtains in there and that sort of things, that kind of takes away the sides a little bit. But I don't know. I think it works pretty well for the interiors. I mean, you can set your I use the LEDs because they give me enough brightness that even if you have a lit room and you want to keep the lights on in the room, you can still see it. So you can dim it down as much as you want. And now when I was putting the LEDs in, you have to be careful, but like I say, because they actually overpower the window, the front of it. If you turn it up all the way, it can overpower the whole scene. So you want to kind of keep them above it or a distance from the side. You don't want it right on the right in the window itself. But the other thing is, no, this particular one here, I have tape on it, just broke off, so I just retaped it. And like I say, when you put it up against the backdrop, you won't see that. It darkens everything else. The other thing is you don't have to cut one piece out for the whole building. You can leave, like if you want to leave 3 of the windows dark, you just don't put any glass there at all, or just put a thin piece of glass and don't put any light bulbs in that one particular window or windows. So you can do a series of them. If you have a big building, you can you can do some and leave other ones darkened out. So you can do it however you want to do it, whatever works for you. It's something I tried. I think it works out okay. Certain situations, if you have an area that's really well lit, it probably won't work. But if you have a darker area of the layout or a darker room, or if you just have something you want to illuminate, it'll work for that. So if anybody has any questions, I'd love to hear them.
Well, Kurt,
I
really
have one question.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The facade for the front of that plastic, where did you say you got that? Is it already a building front that you used?
Yeah, which one you're talking about? The this particular one here or the other one?
Either one of them. I was just wondering.
Well, this one was just what do they call it? DPM.
Yes. Okay.
And the other one was just flat stock that you get at the hobby store. You know, comes in sheets.
Mm-hmm.
Evergreen, I think it might be one, but this is the real thin stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
you cut out the windows out of that?
Yes, I cut the windows out of that. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And then the window frame itself, did you use a colored magic marker or something to do the?
No, the window frames are actually plastic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those are plastic. You know.
That's pretty slick. You don't have to glue any plastic on the back for your window.
Yeah, like I say, I've never been a fan of the acetate they buy. Matter of fact, I do it with all my kits and everything. I put plexiglass. I've never been a fan of the plastic that they put in the kits because it's not clear enough. It doesn't give you a reflection. You can actually get a reflection from this.
Yes.
You can see it reflecting off the light in the room there.
Yes.
And I mean, sometimes you don't want that reflection depending on what you're modeling, but it works really well. And you could put the real thin stuff like in a caboose or in a
dull it down too if you wanted to. Yeah.
What's that? You can you can dull it down. You can dull the back side of the window, and the front side will still give you a glossy look.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
thank you.
Yeah. Like I say, I think this might be helpful for some of those guys that want to model. And maybe if you just want to put one person in the window or a chandelier in the room, you can do that, and it really people love it. I mean, when people see it, they really love it.
Yep. Thank you.
Well, Kurt, thank you so very much for doing this. Look forward to it.
Yeah, next time maybe I'll have some pictures.
That's good. Well, we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Well, now I want to start one of the new segments on our shows. This one is about N-scale modeling. It's sponsored by National Capital Trains, which is owned by Bernard Chrysler, and I really appreciate Bernard wanting to be a part of the show, and I really appreciate him being the sponsor for the N-scale portion of it. We have a short video I'd like to run about his National Capital Trains.
I hate to say this, Jim, but I can't find that. I don't know that we do, so we'll have to come back to that.
Okay. All right. And so the N-scale portion of this is hosted by Clem Harris. Clem is an engineer for one of the railroads, and he can't be here this week and he can't be here next week. What he has done is produce a video that we're going to run tonight of an interview that he has done with another N-scale modeler, and we'll run it now. And as soon as he can get back and not have to operate his train, his real life train, then he'll be on the show and be able to talk about N-scale personally to you. But tonight he's just tied up and he can't get back to a computer. So Phil, if you could run the video for him.
And we'll go from there. Hey, good. Quick introduction of myself. My name's Clem Harris. My daytime job is the railroad. I've done a little bit of everything in the last 27 years, but I've always migrated back to the engineer's seat. For those that may know me from elsewhere, I'm the N-scale shenanigans guy. I've gotten really rambunctious with lighting and sound if you follow my page. This is the first go around for me doing anything like this. I I'm looking forward to the evolution of this segment as we move forward. I have a bit of a weird schedule, which necessitates pre-recording my segments, but I hope you enjoy them. I'm going to jump right into today's segment. Here's an introduction to the area today's guest is modeled. Afton Canyon is referred to as the Grand Canyon of the Mojave Desert. It's about 35 miles east of Barstow in San Bernardino County. The Mojave River runs through the canyon. This is a prominent feature on my guest layout as a dry wash. The area is dotted with many abandoned mines. The area is enjoyed by rockhounds, fossil hunters, campers, and is also enjoyed by the four-wheeling community, amongst many other activities. The canyon itself is approximately 7 miles long. It's designated as a watchable wildlife area and is home to many bighorn sheep. The canyon shows spectacular scenery that displays wind and water erosion that has various shades of tans, greens, and reds. These colors all vary with the time of year, sunlight, and the amount of recent precipitation. It's unlike any other place you've seen. Afton Canyon is located between Yermo, California, and Las Vegas, Nevada on the SEMA subdivision. It would operate under 3 different names in its history, the original name being the San Pedro, Los Angeles, and Salt Lake Railroad from its completion in 1905 to 1916, Los Angeles and Salt Lake Railroad from 1916 to 1988, and then overlapping with that second name, the Union Pacific Railroad from the 1920s to the present. It's commonly referred to as the Salt Lake Route. If you haven't guessed yet, my guest today is Craig Martin. Many will remember him from BLMA, which was the acronym Best Looking Models Around. When I first met Craig, he was at BLMA's headquarters in Fullerton, California. It had an incredible view of BNSF's Southern Transcon, Metrolink, and various Amtrak services in Southern California. And Craig, if you want to cut your camera on, we can get in.
Here I am.
All right, cool. It's been great getting to know.
We lost the video, Phil.
I know I had a glitch here.
That you do and what you've represented. I mean, looking at your background of your layout in your room there is just, it's insane. Having stood there in that room with you and just I had to pick my jaw up off the ground looking at everything.
Yeah, thank you.
As I've got a few odds and ends basic questions for you, Craig, and just to kind of get a pulse of who you are, what you've done in the hobby, what you're doing. What got you into trains, man?
So, yeah, well, first of all, and again, dude, good to see you. Thanks for having me. And I am happy to be here as the modeling side of it, not the business side anymore. We can go into that later. But I think, like a lot of us growing up, I had a grandfather who had a model train HO scale layout in his house. And, but he didn't run it. He was more of he was an art teacher. And so, in fact, let me just maybe slow this down. He was an art teacher, and it was more about building the scenery and doing all that. And the trains were kind of the afterthought. But in addition to that, before I went to preschool, my babysitter, her house butted up to an SP line. So, this is like late 80s. I would see tunnel motors all day long. And back then, didn't know what they were. But looking back, it's like, oh, man, I wish I could see those concepts again, because killer EMD, big, heavy trains moving at real slow speeds through where they were locally here. But so just kind of always around them. And then my dad would take me, ironically, to the Fullerton train station to watch trains. And, again, like you mentioned, when we first met and when I had the BLMA business going on, I have a condo right there by the train station that looks over that station. So a lot of history for me in Fullerton, still here to this day. But yeah, that's kind of it growing up, just always around them in one way or the other.
That's awesome. I grew up in Colorado Springs on the Joint Line, and I remember vividly Southern Pacific tunnel motors, Rio Grande tunnel motors, Cotton Belt tunnel motors just hammering through town. And at night the just being able to hear, almost, it seemed like every cylinder just pounding through
Yeah.
through my grandfather's house as they were running coal trains up and down the joint line. And even the like the light packages that were on all that stuff back in the 80s, when SP had all the gyro lights and everything. I mean, I can vividly remember that. That's actually neat that we share somewhat of a similar memory on that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And you kind of got into my next question a little bit here, but I wanted to ask you what's some of your earliest memories of trains?
Boy, earliest memories I think would be it kind of answers that same thing. My just standing on my babysitter's headboard in her bedroom and looking out and seeing these tunnel motors go by slowly. Or we go to Cajon Pass also as a kid. I think it was just that I have 3 kids now, and we've talked about this, but they're certainly rambunctious. And so everyone's like, oh, that's payback for how you were as a kid. But I think back about going to Cajon Pass and I'm like, well, my dad's not into trains, but we'd go pick up some donuts, grab his buddy, and we go up there and watch trains because they knew I was into trains. And in hindsight, because I have kids now and they're rambunctious, I can tell you that he just did it to get me out of the house so that I had something to like look at, right? Like it was a little self-serving for everybody. I got something out of it and he got to keep me occupied for a little bit so I didn't tear the house up. But yeah, that's I have some really fond memories of that. And you know, who would have known? I think for all of us, right? It starts with one little tiny thing, and then like both of us, I mean, you have a career in it, and decades later, we still love it.
Well, and that's actually the fun thing. Like I remember back some of the original trains that I had as a kid. You know, the venerable Tyco Santa Fe F unit. I was the kid back then. I was trying to set it up and figure out how I could do jumps with it because when I was a kid, the Dukes of Hazzard was the show on TV. Yeah. And so I was trying to do jumps with a Santa Fe F7, and you know, flanges and rails. You know, little 4 or 5-year-old Clem didn't quite grasp the concept of flanges and rails the same way 48-year-old Clem does. So
yeah, well, that's for sure. That's
right, yeah, flanges and rails, they're a godsend. But
yep.
I was going to ask you too, Craig, why did you pick N scale? Out of all the scales you could have picked, there's O, there's HO, there's S, and each one offers a lot of different things to the hobby. Why N scale?
Yeah, well, you know, for me personally, I had a family friend member get me a Bachmann, or we call it Bachmann, you know, train set.
Yeah.
It was an M-Track. I think, what was the big engine? Like what was the big electric engine they had?
Oh, like it was like a kind of a quasi E60, I think.
Yeah. And it had like the dual end, you know, kind of stuff. He got me that set. And kind of from there is where I just, you know, because I was N scale at that point because of that set, then other people would buy me N scale stuff and this, that, whatever. And then it just kind of evolved from there. But, you know, certainly I appreciate the other scales, but I think that, you know, I'm big into super detailing of the models and of the engines, but then I also like to watch them go through a bigger scene. And for me, this still to this day, I think for what my purpose is, which is kind of like a rail fan, I'm not a big switcher. I like to run long trains with DP units. I like to model exactly as the canyon is. And it's so big in real life that to kind of shrink it down and feel like I'm there, it had to be this. It had to be N scale.
Greg, can you describe the size of your layout for everybody watching us today?
Yeah, this layout is essentially from what you can see here, and I hope the mic's picking me up as I move around a little bit, but
it is.
Okay, it's a small room, but effectively this is 2 basically 4x8 sheets of plywood eld together. And then with a helix that kind of spirals down, but it's kind of a funky twisted track plan underneath to maximize train length. So I'm in a room, this room I think is maybe 12 by 12 or something of that nature. It's a rectangle, but it's maybe 12 by 15. It's one of the bigger rooms outside of our master bedroom, but this layout barely fits. And then I had started building benchwork around the outside to make it bigger, but eventually I'm going to build a building in the backyard to take this portion that's finished of the layout, put it back there, and then build the rest of it kind of on steroids. So that would be a 20 by 20 foot layout. But as it is right now, it's basically 2 4x8s in an L configuration together.
That's awesome. And again, having seen your layout in person when I got to visit you earlier in the year, the amount of scenery you've been able to put into that layout, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're modeling more or less a single scene on your layout. Am I seeing that correctly?
Well, yeah, to your point about the facts of Afton Canyon, I think it's 6-7 miles long in real life. So if you're looking, so you can see my Yermo badge here. So going that way, you're going east, going the other way, you're going towards Barstow. So as you go through the scene from, left to right or right to left or east to west as it may be, I've tried to model accurately the different topography and as things change, because if you look behind me here, this area on the prototype looks like this, but it's further east, and this area, I'm sorry, further west on that side. And then over here, it kind of starts to level out. You've got your double bridge span here. Way back here, we've got this culvert. So these are all 3D printed to match the prototype. So I went out, got dimensions, had somebody draw them up and had them made through Shapeways. And so again, around the layout, as you kind of walk around from east to west or west to east, you follow how things change in the canyon. So it's one location, but it's the 7-mile stretch condensed into this layout.
That is absolutely awesome. And again, like I said, when I got to see your layout in person, it's still phenomenal. Like I'm sitting here looking over your shoulder right now, and you've captured some of the green in the sagebrush and the desert grasses down in the river wash and on the hillside. But then you've captured even the reddish hues that are so common in the desert, and then the white cliffs in the background with the wind and water erosion over time. I mean, that's absolutely insane. You're hard pressed to find this level of detail in any scale, let alone in scale.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, and it's kind of I'm 6'4", and this thing already sits kind of high, so some of these mountains go up pretty tall, but I definitely wanted to get that kind of wow factor, because in the canyon, that's how I feel when I go in there. It's like, wow, this place is beautiful and it's big.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to ask, I know a lot of this segment is designed to be geared more towards N-scalers, but do you dabble in any other scales at all, or live steam?
As my daughter would say, no.
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
Are you kidding me, man? Do you know like how many hours in the day we'd be like wasting if we, it would be tough. I know a lot of people do it, but
right. And that's the same with me. I mean, I between doing 1-to-1 for a living and all of the stuff that goes with that, and then trying to do more than N scale, I'd be lost. Occasionally, at least on my end, I'll tackle a project for a friend, like doing a sound install for HO stuff.
Or this car you did that you graciously left.
Oh, yay. Thank you. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, there's plenty of stuff to keep busy in one scale, but for sure, I know plenty of guys. I would like to eventually do a live steam layout. That would be my next thing. And I would want to do it in a grand scale. Frankly, we don't have the space here at this house to do it, but yeah, if I did it, it would be bigger, but that's down the road.
Okay, that's fair. For me, I outside of 1-to-1 and N, I don't know that I want to tackle anything else. I'm good.
I feel you. I hear you. Man.
Well, as I say, I'm sorry that Clem couldn't be here to answer your questions and to talk to you personally, but he couldn't do it this week. So next week, we'll continue this interview that he's doing. And hopefully then the following week, he'll be able to join us and answer any questions you may have. I understand Phil now has the video for National Capital Trains. So Phil, if we could run that, please.
Mainline Hobby Supply is your one-stop store for model trains in G, O, S, H, O, N and Z scales, including locomotives, rolling stock, track, train sets, and more to help build your model railroad. We are the largest model railroad shop in the area, and we carry a wide range of model railroad supplies across scales. Our friendly staff is always available to help with your modeling needs and to special order anything you may require. Mainline Hobby Supply is in southern Pennsylvania, halfway between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. We are only an hour away from Baltimore, and we are easy to get to from the 70, 81, 83, and 270 freeways. Plan to stop by on your next trip through Pennsylvania. Mainline Hobby Supply also has an online store that can cater to your modeling needs wherever you are located. With our large inventory, fixed shipping costs, friendly and knowledgeable service and prompt shipping, consider Mainline Hobby Supply for your next online order. Use the QR code to access our online store.
Mainline Hobby Supply is the sponsor for our HO segment, our HO modeling segment of our series. The N-Scale is sponsored by National Capital Trains. And Phil, I'm assuming that you don't have that video ready for this evening?
We never got it. We never got anything for it.
Okay, then we'll have to follow up this week and make sure that we can run it next week then. This Mainline Hobby Supply is owned by Brian Wolf, and I can't thank Brian enough for wanting to sponsor the HO segment. I really do appreciate it, and certainly the financial support that he provides for new tracks to help cover our out-of-pocket cost. The modeler who is the host for this segment is Edmund O'Rourke, and I'd like to turn to him now to be the host for the HO segment of our shows. So Ed, thank you so much for doing this.
All right, I'm gonna, there we go. All right, I'm gonna share my screen here.
Okay.
Wait a minute. What are we doing here? All right. I think, let me see. I'm having, there we go. Share.
Okay, Edward, what you want to do is click on, do you have your document open you want to share?
Yeah.
Is it on your screen? Okay, so click on the share, get on Zoom. On the bottom left, click on the share screen. On the bottom of the screen, very bottom.
Yeah.
See the
Share
green
the screen. I've got it here, but there we go. Now I think we've got it.
There.
Okay. There we
Cool.
are. And let's do slideshow. There we go. How's that? Let me see that.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. So here's our HO scale modeling. What, why, how, sponsored by Mainline Hobby Supply. So first of all, what's HO scale? Okay, I don't know how many of us on the show are HO scalers. I get the feeling there are a lot of large larger scale people, but HO scale was named because it was half O scale, more or less. It's 1/87th proportion, 3.5 millimeters to the foot. And HO scale, of course, also includes HON3, HON2, and HON30, which is HO narrow gauge that runs on N scale track. So you can you can use N scale mechanisms and N scale track if you want. I found this diagram. This is one of the best comparisons of scales that I have ever run across, because it shows a human being and the relative proportion of the different sizes of model trains to that human being. So you can see HO over here, and how that sort of lines up to what a human being would be. Oops, what happened? There we go. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay. So why would you model an HO scale? Well, first of all, the size. You can get a fair amount of railroad in a given space. HO came about because they developed motors that would fit in a smaller scale. Originally, that was a problem. Originally, it was 6 volt and became 12 volt after World War II. 2-rail track, although not all of it is 2-rail track. And it's big enough to detail and handle. HO and OO scale were competitive for a while. HO eventually won out. Why? Well, I don't know. But if you go back into the old model railroaders, there were competing articles in there all the time about which was going to be better, HO or OO. Eventually, HO won out. It's by far the most popular scale in terms of the number of people that say they model in it. It's followed by N scale, O scale, G, which is, large scale garden scale, and S. What are the advantages? Well, first of all, because it's so popular, there's a wide variety of manufacturers and dealers. Therefore, also a wide selection of models of all types, including many prototypes, eras, narrow gauge, and at various price points. There's ready to run, there's kits, so large selection of scratch building supplies, windows, doors, etc., and generally good availability of products. There are also many other modelers in the scale, therefore there's plenty of support. If you have a problem, there's probably someone who's done the same thing that you're trying to do earlier. There's plenty of info in the hobby press. There are always complaints in the MR and RMC that they only cover HO scale, but that's because there's so many people in there, and that's who seems to write for them. Again, the size, a reasonably large layout is possible in an average basement or spare room, and you're able to model to a very high level of detail if you wish. This is HO scale. This is Markland 3-rail. I put this in here because this is how I got started this was my first model railroading. My father brought a bunch of Markland HO 3-rail home from Germany. He was in Germany with the National Guard during the Korean War. That's my grandson in there. This is just a little bit of it that I've set up actually on a 36 by 80 foot hollow core door for them to play with over here in the family room when they come to visit, and they get a lot of fun out of that. And I like having it around because I've had it for so long. I have a lot more of it than this in boxes. This is also HO scale. This is a small switching layout that our division built to take the train shows, to show kids that show people there's more to model railroading than running things around a circle. This was in Model Railroader about 7 or 8 years ago. It was actually designed to be built on a 15-inch hollow core door. We adapted it so that we could move it places. But there's a lot of switching possibilities with this. It resides on a bookcase in my friend Roger's home when it's not at a train show. And it has a lot of expansion possibilities for someone who's in an apartment and doesn't have much room. And then there's also this. This is Drew James, Canada, Spokane and Pacific Railroad up in Clay, New York, which is a full basement full of trains. Drew models it's a freelance line, but it is somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. He has Canadian Pacific. He has Burlington Northern on there, and you can see the size and the scope of this type of, this is also possible in HO scale. Here's some more HO. This is mostly my stuff. I modeled the New Haven in about 1950. And if you're going to do that, you have to have electrics. So this is a brass EP4. The catenary is by Model Memories, which is down in Powhatan, Virginia. It is authentic New Haven design catenary. This is I think this is the Buzzards Bay Tower. This is a resin kit, which you can find. This one is an ancient Tyco trolley, I think, that I reworked into a work car, a line car, from a picture that I saw in a book of trolley cars. I'm a closet trolley modeler, Jim. So trolley are another interest of mine. But next time I have to downsize, I said I'm gonna just model a trolley line in the city. These are City Classics company houses in plastic. I modified this one into a tailor shop and worked on this one here. The FAs here are old Walther's train line models, going back a long ways. This is a design preservation models hobby. They have models building. They have a ton of stuff out there. This is Ray's Bar. My father-in-law always wanted to own a bar and never got the opportunity, so I built this one for him with his name on it. Some more HO. This is an AccuRail kit, which is basically a shake the box. It's not much different from the old Athearn blue box cars, but a lot of detail to it and very nice. It turns out very well. You can add. I added some brake detail to it to make it a little more detailed. This is an Ambroid kit, which is, we say an Ambroid kit is it's scratch building in a box. You get a bunch of wood and a plan that says build the model and paint it. These are again our brass electrics here. This is SS75 New Haven Station. I may talk about how I built this one a little later on in the programs. This is scratch built. This is a Proto 2000 plastic PA. Again, the EP4 and brass, and Broadway models I5 Hudson. What are the disadvantages of HO scale? Size. Okay, a modest size layout consumes a fair amount of space. Size. I at one time thought if I went into N scale, I could build a whole lot more. Now I'm starting to think that maybe I should think about going to ON 30 or something so that I can see it and work on it with my senior fingers. The other problem with HO is ubiquity. If you build kit structures and you go around, you're going to see lots of those same structures on other people's layouts. Not a problem if you scratch built or kit bash, but you'll see a lot of the same things on HO scale layouts, obviously. It's also not as robust as the larger scales. The detail's more fragile and easy to damage, although I think it's a good place in between N scale and the larger scales, but it's not really suitable for young children. How do you get started? There are starter sets produced. They're not the $29.95 ones that were out there when I was first getting started, but they do produce starter sets with an oval track, a power pack, and some locos and cars. There are reasonably priced locos and cars from Walthers, Athearn, Bachmann, Accurail, and others. Almost all of them now come at least DCC ready. They also will have DCC installed, or even come with sound installed if you want. Atlas makes a lot of tracks, so does Walthers, so does Pico. You can start with an MRC Power Pack or an NCE Pro Cab or Digitrack Zephyr, which is an all-in-one DCC thing. You can find modest track plans, and a bunch of books are online. Model Railroader, I think, is aimed at the early model railroader, someone who's maybe in their first 5 years of modeling, although lately they've gotten a little more detailed with some of their stuff. And they have on their website, trains.com, a whole section devoted to beginners if people want to get started. We figured that small switching layout back here, let me go back to that one. We figured there was about $1,000 in that, but a lot of it, what we got, was donated. But that partly has to do with the fact that we built it as robustly as we did, because we have to be able to take it apart and throw it in the back of a car to get it to places. But that whole layout with everything on there could be built for about $1,000. And you could do it in stages. I would also recommend anybody getting started that they consider joining the NMRA. I think there's a lot. They have a lot to offer beginners, and there's a lot of support there if you are an NMRA member. And that's all I got today. Unless if there's questions or comments, that's my workbench. It's over from, and this is the background is my former railroad where we moved in the spring. So this is gone, and I've got a new one starting over here in the other part of the basement, which is going to be in a bigger space. I have catenary because the superintendent of the Central New York Division, Brian Curry, who was a master model railroader, his passenger car was NN3, and he had it detailed enough that you could see the roll of paper coming off the toilet paper roll in the bathroom on it. And he said to me, "Ed, how can you model the New Haven without catenary?" And I didn't have an answer for that, so now I have catenary. And there you go.
Well, it's beautiful looking modeling. It really is. Is it powered?
Oh yeah. Oh, the catenary? No.
Yeah.
No, the catenary is not powered. I tell people I'm crazy, but I'm not insane.
How can you how can you possibly not have power?
in the catenary? Because most of the models aren't set up to run in HO, aren't set up to run that way. The Markland stuff will run off the catenary, but most of them, it's not insulated for it. Insulating all of that would be a nightmare. And but in the pre-DCC era, I toyed with that idea because I thought I could run the electrics off the catenary and the steam and the diesel off the rails and be able to bring them together or more when I wanted to. Fortunately, DCC came along before I went down that road.
Well, I was just kidding. I was just kidding you because I imagine the work that's involved in doing it, but it's really beautiful to see. It really is.
Yeah. If I was running trolleys, I might consider that. With a single wire and a single unit. But to get all those tracks insulated and separated and not have short circuits all over the place, I think would be quite a challenge.
It's fun. It's fun, no question about it.
Oh, it is. Yeah, for sure.
Well, listen, thank you so very much, and look forward to continuing this series. I think it's going to be interesting, and I really appreciate you doing it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Well, now I want to turn. Oh, and by the way, we cannot run the National Capital video, the promotional video for them this week. because it's my fault. I just didn't double check to make sure we had everything we needed, and we don't. So I contacted Bernie, and hopefully we'll have it and be able to show it, start showing it next week. But I apologize, Bernie, for not being able to do it. So now I want to turn to Tom Farrell, and he has got something that I really think is going to be fantastic. He blew me away last week. He has had more views on what he did last week than any other program that we've ever run on our show. He's had over 230, I think now, separate views of just his one segment of the show last week. So I know that you all are enjoying what he's doing. I know I am. And so, Tom, I will take it over to you, sir.
Thank you for having me again, and thank you for the accolades. This time I can say I have something really interesting, really special, which going to feature the John Allen engine house. And in ON 30, we give a little history of who John Allen is for those who might not know. And that's the John Allen house arted up. This is John Allen himself. He's basically the most famous model railroader in the world. He's the creator of the gory and defeated railroad. A lot of us got into the hobby because of him. You know, he was an inspiration, and he was a pioneer in the hobby. I think probably most of the people on this program know who he is, but perhaps some of the middle and younger age people don't. Joni Keister, he's pretty famous himself. His he did the obituary and Railroad Model Craftsman for John when he passed away. Key thing I picked out of there is his real talent was just plain and simple model building. He was really the first of his kind to do weathering, scratch building on a really scale, realistic level. He was quite an amazing modeler. The biggest influence for me in the hobby of model railroading was John Allen. I put this in here because countless model railroaders have said this over the decades. Even though he was a great modeler and innovator, he was his nickname was the Wizard of Monterey. He lived in Monterey, California. By profession, he was a professional photographer. Did a lot of articles for all the magazines, but he didn't take himself too seriously. His gory and defeated, I mean, just the name itself, it's spelled Gorre, but it's gory is how you pronounce it. And defeated, he spells it a special way. It just shows his wit. And you can't really see it here, but it says, "We ain't modern, but we're progressive." I mean, he just had a little humor to everything he did. And to this realistic photograph, there's the engine house that I'll be featuring. So he pops his head up in there. He just had a lot of fun with the hobby. Passed away the age of 60 with a heart attack, unfortunately. And shortly, within a couple of days after his funeral, a bunch of his modelers got together to run his layout, quote, one last time. They didn't realize it would be the last time. They turned on an industrial furnace that was down in the basement of his Monterey home, and it had some asphalt shingles on it, unbeknownst to the operators, and the whole place caught fire and burned to the ground. And so ended the greatest model railroad that ever was made. This is some of the humor that he would do. He made this swayback boxcar. And he had these characters on his layout. that people began to know by name over the years. He started writing for these magazines post World War II. The engine house that I'm going to feature was featured in a railroad magazine in 1948. Here's another one of his whimsical things. His switcher was this, he wrote this whole thing on the Stegosaurus that did all the switching in his yard. So he had a very interesting sense of humor and extraordinary modeling skills. This is perhaps the most iconic structure in our hobby, the John Allen engine house. I mean, this was made in 1948, was featured in a two-part article. I actually have the actual magazine from 1948 as reference material. It was a two-part series. There's reference drawings in there and how we went through it. Just gorgeous model. You know, that's 75 years ago, guys. I also have the Fine Scale Miniatures HO engine house, unbuilt in mint condition. I purchased this probably 20 years ago. It's on my shelf along with the other kits that I never build. But this particular one is interesting. $9.95. If you go on eBay this evening, there's one of these for sale right now for $599. Now, I'm not sure anybody's actually going to get $600 for one of these, and I have no intention of selling this, but that's just shows you the legacy of John Allen. There are no other fine scale miniature kits that are worth between, let's be realistic, $350 and $600. It's because it's John Allen. Now, I'm not unfamiliar with the John Allen engine house. Approximately 20 years ago, I began a scratch build in HO scale. And I don't actually model in HO scale. I just wanted to do a near duplicate of the John Allen engine house. And these photographs I took just actually this morning. I never finished this kit, or it's not a kit, it's a scratch build. I never finished the scratch build, but I am going to finish it because it's basically almost done. I have to put the walls up, finish this particular side, and put a roof on. But this thing has quite a bit of detail. It looks like we have a little bit of dust and spider webs, but it's probably 20 years old. So, I mean, it needs finishing, and I'll do that. But so I am familiar with the John Allen engine house. And in his article, he says, and I quote, "Should you decide your railroad needs a shop of this type, change dimensions and plans to fit your own locos and other requirements." John Allen, October 1948. Who am I to argue with the greatest model railroader of all time? So begins my ON30 version. His HO structure would, if I followed the plans exactly, would be 16.5 inches in length in O scale. Now, I model an ON30, which is still, you know, O scale, but my locomotives are considerably smaller than standard gauge. Plus, I don't have the real estate to put in a 16.5 inch and perhaps 10-inch wide model. So I did selective compression of John Allen's engine house, and like all my models, it's starting to sound redundant, but I start with a piece of plywood. And on this particular piece, I drew out the floor plan. It fits the location in Shantytown, which I've been working on. It's going to feature an engine house at the end of the line. This is it, and this is the space I have. So I selectively compress the John Allen engine house. Anybody that's well, after this program, anybody that's familiar with the John Allen engine house will instantly recognize this as a John Allen themed engine house. Now, I normally just start with a piece of plywood and have at it. No plans, no drawings, nothing. But this required me to fire up my CAD program and draw out the front of this engine house, because John did this. Of course, he didn't have CAD, but these are, I think Dennis mentioned that the modeler he's featuring had perfect proportions. Well, I got to tell you, you appreciate the genius of John Allen when you're trying to lay out the front of this building, this structure, this engine house. This putting the right radius here and fitting in these decorative pieces and this circular window. I have to tell you, this took several hours to figure this one out. And John Allen did this, I mean, he winged it. And if you Google John Allen engine houses online, you'll see everybody screws this up because they don't try it with CAD. I mean, with CAD, I had to move everything around, and it took a while to get everything parallel and perpendicular. And so I printed out the drawing, and then I rubber cemented it to this Strathmore board. And it's full scale for my model. And I wanted to make sure that my locomotives would fit through those openings. I just wanted to be real careful with this one. So I glued these wings on. I threw some track down. I taped them temporarily to the base of my model, my plywood. And I put a couple, these are going to be the engine house for my two Shay locomotives. You can see it, all kinds of powder on here from this. But so I wanted to make absolutely sure they fit. I didn't want to go to all this trouble and then have clearance problems. I've talked about Monster Board in the past, Monster Model Works. I spent a little bit of money here, I have to admit, contrary to John Allen, who did everything with cardboard and total scratch build. But these materials are so attractive, and I didn't want to disrespect my John Allen engine house. So sorry, hold on. This thing comes up and ruins my presentation. Hold on, sorry. Oh, damn it. Hold on, there we go, okay. Everything cool? Okay. So I purchased, these are actually 3 different scales. These shingles are HO scale, because I thought the O scale ones were too big. So this will be the roofing material. This wood siding is actually S scale. That's going to be the floor of the engine house. And then the siding here is O scale, and that will be the sides of the building. And then even though I have an abundance of windows and doors and all, I didn't have this stuff. I had to order this special. A couple of weeks ago, Greg Cassidy said, I don't know how you turn these out every week. It takes me time to get the materials in-house. Well, one of my delays in starting this was getting all these windows and all this siding and all these materials. This is what's required for the engine house. I actually prefer Tichy over Grantline because Tichy comes with pre-cut glazing, you know, the windows, the acetate. This you have to hand cut yourself, which is a pain. but I used Tichy where I could and filled in with Grantline. I deviated a little bit from John Allen. He has a random stone foundation, which he in the fine scale miniatures model and his model, you basically put up a foundation and he glued these pebbles onto the wall. I like to think if there were some things available like this, he probably would use them. My idea was to make this not concrete block, but cut limestone, a dimensional cut limestone block. Since my railroad features, it's a hybrid between Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, my hometown, the gritty sections of Pittsburgh in the 1920s and 30s, and southern Indiana limestone belt. There's justification for my particular engine house to have the limestone foundation. So that's the other end of it. I also deviated in that on the John Allen engine house, there's a pass-through. This is the front of the engine house. This is the rear. On the John Allen engine house, this pass-through is actually on this side. But where I'm locating this structure, it makes more sense to reverse the rear and have the pass-through on this side of the structure. So once I had my foundation in and I had drawn in my tracks, I stripped this actually HO track code 100, I think. I stripped the plastic ties off and I super glued these down to the plywood. Later, not in this, in part 2, I will put in that flooring material, which is actually S scale material, but I wanted a tighter board on here than the O scale. But that'll be for another day. These are the materials, the paints that I've using for part 1 of this program. This is for the foundation. I started with this oyster beige, which represents a buff limestone, and then I will go back and touch it up with some gray. When you have a buff and a gray mix, we call that a variegated limestone. And then I'll go back and I'll hit it with this brown alcohol wash. I'm going to get to this in a moment. And then this is for the windows and the trim. And I did again deviate from the John Allen engine house. I saw in my research on all the people that have made John Allen engine houses, I saw one that they painted the inside white and trimmed it out with green, and it looked really neat, really old-fashioned. So instead of having a wood interior like my HO scratch built one that I showed earlier, I thought it would be cool to do this old-fashioned white with green trim. It looks, I found one online, it just looked really neat, and I'm just taking that idea. Here's something from the blast from the past. I don't know how many of you are familiar with, they call this a, I think there's a railroad name for it, a pickling wash or some crazy name they have for it. But basically, you fill a container with white vinegar, you throw some steel wool in there, and you wait about a month, and the steel wool disappears. And you get this brown weathering wash. It's basically an iron oxide. And there's a very, very high-level modeler, Eberwein. He uses this all the time. And I've had this for, I'm ashamed to say, at least 10 years. I've never actually used it. But I thought, as an ode to old school John Allen, this is something he would use. That's about how old this technique is. I don't know how many of you have ever tried this. You'll see it's a pretty neat, neat look. So getting back to the model, my first coat was that, looks pinkish white here, but it's actually a buff color. That's the base coat. Now the inside of the stone wall, since the laser cut material is only on one side, and this is a relatively thick material, I couldn't double it up and have limestone on both sides. So I thought maybe it would be best to put in like a wainscoting, which would be unrealistic to cover up raw stone. So I glued this wainscoting around with yellow glue, couple drops of super glue on the end so it wouldn't lift. And then I gave it its first coat of that acrylic white craft paint, which is my paint of choice when possible, is to use these craft paints. There's just an overview. Looks like I've put a coat of something on here, the alcohol wash. Yeah, that was a screw up. It did turn pink, but I fixed that. And this is the white. The idea is to paint this first, then pre-stain the flooring. These will be placed in pieces in part 2, and then I won't get any paint on the flooring. So this will be finished, and then I'll put the pre-stained floor in here, you know, all across, and I won't have to worry about getting white paint in the floor or the flooring colors onto the paint. Next up were the sides, and this Monster Model Works material has an orientation. This side up, I drew this out. I just transferred my drawing from the CAD. This is that random board. Again, these are the best materials in the business. These boards are all laser etched. So they're just not outlined, they're laser etched. See, look at the wood grain there. Is that amazing? It's just amazing material. This was cut out with a modeler square I got from Micro Mark and a number 11 blade, nothing fancy there. I test fit the windows just to make sure they all fit, make sure they're all level. They will be painted brown. And then I began the tedious modeling of putting interior detail, which reminds me on 99% of my models why I black them out, so I don't have to do this. But for this, you're going to see the inside, and I'm going to make it with a removable roof. So I totally finished. And this is to, these larger beams are where the roof supports, trusses will sit on. These are just support beams, and then these are cross members, and these are doubled up. This is just like real construction, where you double the windows and you put these creepers in so it doesn't, you don't get any warpage. That took quite a bit of time. Each piece has to be hand cut, glued, placed in with tweezers. So this one's finished, and this is the other side. The difference is this is the front side. This one has a door in it. So the place of this window is a door. So I cut that one out. Same technique, a modeler square, number 11 X-Acto blade, always a fresh, sharp blade. There it is, the reverse side, and there it is with the test fitting of the windows and the door. This protrudes down because remember we have a foundation, limestone foundation below. It's approximately ½ inch, which works out to be a couple feet. Then I began painting it with the craft paint, the white. All these fuzzies and things I sand off. But this was also tedious. I would have loved to spray this with just a flat white paint, but I was terrified that I would get paint on the opposite side, the finish side, the outdoor side. Then it was all painted up. Now, of course, I'll go in and I will weather this eventually, and you'll see how I finish it off. But this is the base coat again. Now, to make it that old-fashioned look, I added this green. I think I'm going to go back and paint the outlines of these windows green too. This is a Floatwell dark green. There it is mounted. Now I've got to do some touch up here and some weathering. But this is how the model is shaping up. There's one of my locomotives in there for scale. And so there's plenty of clearance. That is the rusted, that pickle mix. That's what it looks like. These windows are not painted. They're just sitting in there for just for this photograph. I will go back and detail some of these individual, quote, limestone blocks. But that's approximate color that I like. And there will be trim on here. There's still a lot to do on this model. The model will feature trim pieces coming down here, trim pieces going across. But it's moving along. So that's my part one. Yeah, here's the trim pieces here. So this will be trimmed out. It might be a three-part series. It depends how ambitious I can get during the next week, how far I can move it. Any questions while I got it up?
It's not a question, Tom, but I agree with you on the Monster Model Works products. I've used some of their siding and their flooring, and they're just phenomenal. The way he etches it and it makes it look like it's a real product.
Yeah, and using the material as it's a flooring material, but I'm using it as a siding. It's just a sexy material. It's a good looking material. Yeah.
Beautiful model, no question. Anybody else have any questions? Tom, thank you so very much. Look forward to seeing what you've accomplished next week.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes, sir. Well, Steve Sherrill was supposed to be here this evening to talk about battery power, but the people that he was going to have on were going to run so long that we've just decided to reschedule. So that segment, the final segment on the battery power, will be rescheduled, and Steve will be back next week to talk about what do you want to talk about. So with that said, that pretty well finishes our show for this evening. And Phil, Pat, I think we have a caboose to show.
Yes, we do.
Does it have any sound?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Beautiful modeling. Who's modeling?
Ooh, that's Mr. Gary Shergold's layout.
Mr. Gary Shergold has a beautiful layout. Thank you, Gary. Thank you for sharing that.
You're very welcome.
That's really beautiful modeling.
The little cabooses for short trips.
Well, we appreciate you sharing your layout with us. And seriously, if other people would like to share them, send us your videos and we'll use them as short cabooses in our shows each night. So thank you all so much for coming. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Most importantly, hope you learned something. And again, I apologize for my goof ups during the show. I'll try to get my act together better for next Wednesday. Thanks so much for being here. See you next Wednesday.